Stop that. I hear him chat to the noise, move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the walking. Just too sharp with the prize, white girls let it tell me I'm awesome, yeah. Hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch my please use caution. Cold like 0 degrees. I'm out the cage, gotta let out the beast. Revolutionary, gotta let out the streets. Locked in a cage, I'ma let out the sheets. We can't go out, man, get my peace. You take the west, I'll take on the east. I'ma put him in the cage, never let out the. Yeah, I hear him chat to the noise, move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the boys, not so tough, but mans keep walking. Yeah, just too sharp with the prize. White girls, let it tell me I'm awesome. Yeah, hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch me, please use caution. Stop that. Stop that. Stop that.
A whole bunch of things working against me today. We've got back row Jessica hopped up on coffee and hasn't had a opinion expressed around here at a microphone in 10 days.
It's a different Smetty. Back row Smetty is a different Smetty.
That is correct. We've got Chris Cody in charge.
What's up?
Always makes me leak confidence. His father is here to add to the proceedings and came in hot saying profound disrespect that the Bills are favored by 3 against the Dolphins this Sunday.
Correct.
Stugotz is hopped up on a ton of meds and says, Dan, don't come anywhere near me. He's already tired after 10 days off and sick. And now we've got David Sampson, whose audio hasn't worked right in his 3 months preceding this one.
I'm so nervous. I mean,
we will try to attempt to start this with David Sampson. Nothing Personal is the name of his podcast. I tell you again and again that he covers a whole bunch of stuff that most people are not covering in sports. They just stay away from. So let me start with one of them here that I don't see a lot of people talking about. The Rays had their season upended last year because their shortstop, who was exceptional, and not enough was written about this or covered everything that happened with the Rays, because the Rays in the playoffs had crowds of 19,000, the smallest playoff crowds you will in 100 years in baseball. And Wander Franco, their shortstop, is accused of a relationship with an underage girl and was avoiding authorities, it would appear, in the Dominican Republic. So let's start there, David. What do you make of what's happening there? Because it would appear that their shortstop is going to end up in jail.
Well, hold on. There's a bit of time before that happens. The reason he was arrested is that he did not show up to be interviewed by the police in the Dominican, and so they put a warrant out, and then he did show up. I guess he was busy doing whatever he was doing, and he's actually in jail awaiting arraignment, which is coming today. And we use words like arraignment in the U.S. because we have a constitution and we have rights. What goes on in the Dominican is not exactly what you would think goes on here. But what's really happening is that the Rays are praying that they can get out of the entire $182 million contract that they gave to Wander Franco. And that's a big story because they don't do contracts like that very often. And they already realized they made a mistake because guess what? They've got another shortstop ready to go. And they don't feel that Wander Franco is worth it anymore. But contracts are such that you can only not pay a player if he's terminated for cause. And cause would be convicted of a felony. Not charged, but convicted. So what the Rays are sitting around waiting for is, will he get convicted? And what will the suspension be if he's not convicted by baseball? And they're in cahoots with baseball, trying to get as long a suspension as possible so they can avoid paying him and then try to negotiate some sort of release, because I do not believe you will see Wander Franco in a Tampa Bay Rays uniform ever again.
Greg Cody, can you please tell me this Dolphin game coming up on Sunday is the biggest Dolphin game since blank?
I would need to quantify that. Probably since 2001, off the top of my head. Now, they've been in the playoffs a couple of times.
Last year, right?
Well, a playoff game is bigger than a regular season game to me.
I feel like the playoffs start right now. This week, the playoffs start for the Miami Dolphins.
Can a game be that big if you lose the game, you still make the playoffs?
they don't have much of a chance if they have to start going on the road with this injured team. They need to get something easy on the front end. It's going to be hard enough to win in Baltimore.
Yeah, but in the playoffs, there's nothing easy. I know that's the ultimate cliche, but even if they have a home playoff game against a seventh, sixth seeded team, that's not going to be easy. They're going to be a nominal favorite. The injuries are what concern me. If they're a full-strength team right now, they are clearly better to me than Buffalo, but they're not a full-strength team. They're going to play without at least.
What, clearly better than Buffalo?
Yeah.
Why? How?
I mean, Buffalo's not full strength either.
They played Buffalo and lost by 4 touchdowns.
Right. Yeah, that was pretty early in the season.
But they lost by 4 touchdowns.
Right. I understand that.
Different team now.
Miami's defense is much better now, although you wouldn't know it from 56 to 19. That's the crazy thing about this season is that. Listen,
right, Jessica's laughing at you. She's laughing at everything that's happening.
The defense has steadily gotten better all season.
Okay,
He's right about
agreed.
that.
Yes, agreed.
All right, let me finish my sentence. 2 weeks ago, after they beat Dallas, it's like happy days are here again. The Dolphins finally beat a team with a winning record. They reaffirm that they're a championship contender. A week later, they get their ass kicked by Baltimore, and the sky is falling. There's got to be some moderation in opinion here, and the moderation is that even with all the injuries, they have a great chance to beat Buffalo and win the AFC East on Sunday.
The hyperventilation and extremes are yours, not anybody else's. They beat Dallas barely, and nobody thought that was some giant thing.
Yeah, guess what? Barely counts in sports.
No, you're wrong, Dan. At the time, Dallas was the best team in the NFL. They came into Dolphins Stadium, the Hard Rock Stadium, the Rock, and they lost 22-20. I mean,
Don't poo-poo that win, Dan.
Stop.
Why are you poo-pooing that win?
Yep.
Because
It's a big win.
Dallas is good at home. Dallas has not at any point this season been considered the best team in the league. Not at any point.
It's not true.
I love this so much because we didn't have a show after that Dallas game, so we can't go back and listen to how excited everyone would have been. And now we have a show after the abysmal, oh my God, just devastating performance against the Ravens. And you can't. It's incredible. It's incredible the swing of 2 weeks of not having a show.
David, can you tell me what it means that the NFL has fined Carolina owner David Tepper $300,000 for throwing a cup? He has apologized and says he will accept any and all penalties. Why are you smiling?
Because he didn't really apologize. I just did on Nothing Personal. I went through the statement that he gave, and that statement was with him holding his nose and basically saying, whatever, you fine me $300,000, I don't care, because I'm deeply passionate about my team. David Tepper's a problem, not a Daniel Snyder type problem, but I would say that he's a problem because he doesn't like paying anybody anything. There's people in Charlotte who just hate him, not like the way you guys hated me and Loria. They hate him because he didn't pay his bills like to the subcontractors when they were building the practice facility. He does not fulfill from a business standpoint, forget from a football standpoint where he's been a total failure. So I think what the NFL is waiting for is for Tepper to do something really, really bad where they can get him out. And I think that this is not that, except it's the beginning of that. So I think Roger Goodell's in a position where it's a wait to see, what will he do next and how can we move on from it?
Hold on a second, David. That's awfully fast that you got there. The Davis family has been running the Raiders incorrectly for a hell of a long time. What are you talking about? I haven't heard anybody say that NFL owners are now going to conspire because one of them is embarrassing them. A lot of times owners don't like another owner, and it doesn't escalate to that until Donald Sterling after decades.
Well, hold on. What Donald Sterling did is slightly different.
No, but I'm saying that they hated Donald Sterling for a long time and then found their reason at the end, finally had a reason, wanted to do it but couldn't do it. You're talking about this with Tepper, and I haven't heard any of that from anywhere. The idea that the other owners would run somebody off this quickly.
But if their favorite owner had done what Sterling did, they would have gotten rid of their favorite owner. That's how bad it is what Sterling did. So that's why it's a bad comparison. My issue with Tepper, and the reason why the NFL is so upset about what's going on with Tepper, is that he continues to be a concern and a problem both on the business side and now on the fan side. And Roger Goodell takes very seriously fan treatment. And he was very, very unhappy with what happened here. And it's just another one of the things that Tepper's done. So when you say conspiring, that always, triggers people. It's not a conspiracy to make David Tepper into something he's not. He is exactly who he is. And they're just waiting for him to do something that will rise to the level where they can continue to head toward getting him out.
My point, Samson, is look how long it took them to get rid of Snyder. And it's not because they didn't want to get rid of Snyder the entire time. What you're talking about, when rich people fight, it's really hard to get rid of anybody once they have one of these teams and this kind of power, whether the commissioner wants it or whether the other owners want it.
Well, no, if the other owners want it, then you get it. Remember, it's not the commissioner who has the power, it's the owners. And the thing with Daniel Snyder is there were never enough votes. He had just enough friends where he could hang on. And when he lost his last friend, that's when really the shit hit the fan and he was gone. So it's really sometimes a popularity contest. There were times that Jeffrey Loria was going to be run out of the game with contraction with the Expos and when there were issues with the Marlins, because it's always about counting votes. And with Tepper, that's what they're doing.
David, have you ever been tempted to toss a drink on a fan?
No. I'll tell you why. Because there's no upside to it. That's the thing. That's what I don't get about getting involved with fans.
It must. In
the moment. Yeah.
That second,
right.
I mean, it gets done too much to not feel good to some drink throwers.
The only time that I think it's okay to throw a drink on someone is when you have a previous relationship with that person and it's part of what you do, is maybe part of the games you play, or it's some sort of fetish you may have.
It's a weird
But to
game.
do it as an aggressive thing, to me, is always bad.
Have you ever been tempted to slap a Miami Herald sports writer?
No, Greg, but it's funny you say what you said about the Dolphins, and I want to ask you about this since I have you and I never get you on Wednesdays. You just mentioned that it's the most important Dolphins game since 2001 in your mind.
Yeah, I haven't.
Do you still agree with that?
Well, I haven't researched that.
Does he still agree with his own opinion?
5 minutes later?
That he wasn't prepared to give at the time that I asked him the question because he had tuned the show out and was expecting you to answer all the questions this segment?
Okay, go ahead and play me for an easy laugh, but I preceded what I said by saying I haven't researched that, but off the top of my head, 2001 is the last time they won a playoff game. And I expect this Dolphins team to at least reach the AFC Championship game. And if they don't, it's going to be because they lost Sunday. So in that context, I think this is the most important Dolphins game in a long, long time. But, going back, I would need to research that. I don't talk off the top of my head.
You wrote Fins at 50. You wrote the entire history of the franchise.
But what he is saying is he likes to do research before he answers a question like that. Right. He doesn't do it off the top of his head.
He prides himself on being the greatest Dolphin historian that there is in this market.
Okay, 4 or 5 days ago, I sent in my Baseball Hall of Fame ballot. I didn't fill that out off the top of my head. I spent hours and hours
asking Michael and Christopher. I'm kidding.
Oh, he's mad now.
No.
He's mad
No,
now.
he's not
gonna
kidding.
Lose his vote.
Okay, he's not kidding. All right, here's what happens. I want to explain
Hear him out.
Now
because
he's mad.
this is another example of Christopher disrespecting me just for a laugh. Christopher and Michael are both big baseball fans. As a courtesy, because I think they would enjoy the exercise, I give them a facsimile of my ballot every year, ask them to fill it out just to get their opinion. Now, does it influence my vote? No. But if I'm not voting for a borderline guy and my 2 baseball fan sons both vote for him, perhaps I would reconsider. That's not violating BBWAA rules. I do that as a courtesy. And whether you want to make fun of that or not, I don't care. The point is, I spend a lot of time researching my ballot, and I would spend a lot of time researching. This is the biggest.
Shame.
I'm sorry.
Shame. You should be.
Shame.
I like this Greg. He's not taking shit from
not
any
from
of you.
anybody. No,
Not
here's
from
the year.
any of
New
you.
Greg.
New year, new Greg.
Here's the thing. You look. You asked me off the top of my head. This is the biggest Dolphins game since when? Okay, that is something. If I'm going to write that, I'm going to research that. I'm going to go over the past 20 years of Dolphins history. I'm going to research all their Playoff games, I'm going to research the game that they lost that would have put them in the playoff.
That'll take 2 minutes.
No, it'll actually take about an hour. Actually,
For all the Dolphin playoff games?
no, and for all the games they lost to not make the playoffs, and there have been a couple of those.
And it's not just seeing the games.
Right.
He then has to see what happened in the games. He has to weigh them against each other. It's not just box score reading.
Greg, can you look into it and get back to us at 10:15, 1 hour from now?
If you give me a chance to research
Yes.
only that.
Yeah. Yes.
No, I don't. No, I'm not.
Well,
gonna do that.
here's the thing that makes me side with Greg. He's usually so careful about everything said here by him.
Correct.
Oh, no, that's not true in any way at all.
It is a fair point about the Dolphins having to win this game if they want to make it to the AFC Championship game. They're not getting there if they don't win this game.
Right.
But, David, what was the other question you wanted to ask Cody?
That if they haven't had a game this important since 2001, I still am trying to figure out, and this is just insecurities being brought to the forefront here, how is Stephen Ross considered a successful owner of the Dolphins when you're going back 22 years to an important game?
Well, it's arguable that he is considered a successful owner. If he is, it's largely because of facility upgrades. Look what he's done to that. Look what he's done to that stadium.
You're laughing in his face, David.
What about
it
willingness
doesn't
to
matter.
spend money? What about like Ndamukong Suh and going after the big
Well, but
guys
it's a
multiple
salary
times?
cap
It just
sport.
looked like
They
he
all-
was shot in the chest when that just happened.
What are we doing here, guys? It's the most exciting Dolphin team we've had down here in decades. And Stephen Ross is the owner.
And first of all, David, don't imply that I think Stephen Ross has been a successful owner. He hasn't been. He's the one who's tampering just cost them a first-round draft pick a year ago. He's been an unsuccessful owner for sure, based on the one-loss record.
Wildly unsuccessful, not
Right.
just in the history of this market, in the history of that sport.
Historically unsuccessful.
I agree. Now, the past couple of years, he's been better. He's spent more. He's hired
What
pretty
does
well.
spent more mean in that sport? They're all salary capped. What does spent more mean in that
How
sport?
did this exciting game turn into who was a better owner, Jeffrey or Stephen Ross?
Crazy. Yeah.
You know how.
Hey, Billy, the reason, I can tell you the reason, is that I never understood how he got a pass the way he did when he was such a failure. And just because he spent money to a salary cap, that doesn't make it better. That doesn't make it better. It doesn't make him good. But I always felt, Greg, you asked, did I ever feel like slapping a Miami Herald reporter? Of course not. But I always would want to yell from the mountaintop, what is this affinity toward the Dolphins, and why can't the Marlins be a part of that?
He was asking you, Greg, as a Miami Herald columnist and as a local sports critic, how is it possible that you guys were gentle on this owner? Because that's a result-based business, and in terms of laughing stocks and combination of results, his owner won a World Series.
Right.
This owner can't win a single playoff game.
Correct. I have not been kind to Stephen Ross, and I can show you columns I've written that have been very harsh on him. Now, and also, as David would tell you, I am one of the few people in the media who was perceived as actually supporting your owner, because I was all for them getting that new stadium built. And I will say to my dying day that if that was a bad financial deal for the city, that's not the owner's fault. That's the city's fault. That's the Politico's fault for not negotiating a better deal for themselves. He's a businessman. He should. That's what his job is to get the best deal he can. The politician's job is to protect the citizens as best they can. Somebody did their job in that stadium deal. Somebody didn't, and the city didn't.
But you mentioned facility upgrades on behalf of Stephen Ross as something that's a positive
That
for
is a
him.
positive.
Well, I would only point out that what he's done with the facility upgrades, A, it gets funded in large part from G4, which is the NFL stadium loans, but also it's so he could get other events to get more public money and other events that count toward his revenue that don't in any way get shared with the rest of the football league, National Football League. So what he's done by hosting things other than the Cirque du Soleil in the parking lot has really been a way to extract public dollars while saying that he privately spent to upgrade the stadium, which is just not true.
And you know what that makes him? A smart businessman. And here's what the fan thinks.
Oh, enough of this.
Here's what the fan thinks. The fan thinks, you know what? He brought Formula One here. You know what? He saved tennis when it moved from Key Biscayne. That's what the fan thinks. He's done very well with the facility upgrades there. I don't care what you say.
Yeah, but you say this, and Sampson was a good businessman too, and it didn't help him become popular. Or we weren't
Stephen
talking.
Ross is not popular.
Well, we weren't talking about facility upgrades with Sampson.
Correct.
I mean, also, though, for the longest time, the Dolphins were the only team in town for 30, 40 years, whatever it was. And they also had the only perfect season. They had 2 Super Bowls. They had the winningest coach of all time. Like, they had this
50 years ago.
Okay, but that's all that there was in this town. And then when you have all the writers who grew up with only that in that town, they're going to have, I don't want to say a bias, but they're going to have a soft spot for them. That's why the Dolphins are beloved, because they were the only thing for the longest time.
Do you not think the Heat are the number 1 team in Miami now?
Yes, but they took it from the Dolphins, and it's one of the most stunning things in my history in this market to see it happen.
They borrowed it from the Dolphins.
They borrowed it. Fair enough. They borrowed it from the Dolphins when the Heat were winning all the time and the Dolphins weren't winning at all. But if they're both winning at the same time, it's still a football town.
The Dolphins can get it back. I mean, that's why this game is so big, to Greg's point.
Right.
Yep.
The Cesta Cyclones had a chance this past month.
Just Cyclones
true,
now.
yeah.
Just Cyclones.
What are we doing here with like stadium upgrades and stuff? Like,
It's weird. Look, here's what we should be talking about. If the Vikings win and the Packers lose and the Seahawks lose and the Bucks lose, the Vikings are in. If the Vikings win, the Packers lose, the Seahawks lose, and the Saints lose, Vikings are in.
Wow.
That's what I'm
Well
talking
said.
about.
Wow.
Also,
Wow.
Steelers.
Permutations.
The Miami Dolphins could host a Steelers playoff game in Miami. Another Smetty Bowl coming to town. We're gonna have to do a tailgate. DraftKings send us a tent and a folding table. I'll bring the buffalo chicken dip from Publix. It's gonna be magic.
You have really asked a lot of DraftKings here. Send us a tent and a folding table.
I think
and
we have it right here.
We'll make magic for you. All we need is a tent and a folding table.
It's one of the great partnerships of all time. All we need is a tent and a
The Smetty Bowl, almost as large as the Super Bowl.
Back row Smetty.
Can you tell me, David, what you made of the NFL stealing, not borrowing, Christmas Day from the NBA?
What a big nothing burger. It's just regular season NFL games draw more than NBA Finals or World Series. That's just how it is. Fantasy, gambling, the behemoth that is the NFL. It is a nightmare. Adam Silver, I can't wait to talk to John Skipper about this with Pablo when we do a show again, if we ever do another one, is what was Adam Silver thinking? That he had carved out one thing that the NBA could say, this is what we're great at. And the NFL just sort of waved its wand and said, you know what? Hold my beer. We're going to have about 20 games on Christmas. See you later. And it was a crushing. So the NBA just sits there thinking, oh, my God, please don't ever have Christmas fall on a Monday again. And luckily, it's only once every 7 years. What I can't wait to see is when Christmas... Wait, Greg, can you research what day is Christmas Day next year?
Wednesday.
Oh, that's perfect.
Wow.
They will play a game on Wednesday. The NFL
Yes!
will play Wednesday. I guarantee it.
Do you know that, or are you guessing?
I am guessing.
think they
with an
said they would.
authority
They
that
guaranteed
implies
it.
I
They
know
said
it.
they would not, but the success
I don't
of
believe
it.
them.
They will.
They had a Wednesday game during COVID. I mean, they would do it again. Yeah, it's out of necessity for them to make a ton of money, Billy, every year. They
like
would
ag.
argue.
Just for the record, this journalist who cares very much about everything that he says just guaranteed something where he was obviously guessing.
Right.
Just so that
Right.
we're
That's
on
correct.
the record there.
Yeah, and what is the downside of that?
No, just you know,
Okay,
you're so
thank you.
meticulous. You're
Thank
so
you.
you're so meticulous about everything you say that you would think that you would know what.
I'm not above guessing, but when I'm asked a serious question about when this is the most important Dolphins game,
It's not a
since
serious
when,
question.
You take
It
your
is
time.
a serious
Yeah,
question.
right.
I'm going to research
Serious
that.
question.
I'm going to answer off the top of my head.
David, we'll talk to you next week. Thank you, sir. Yes, that is the serious question.
Serious question.
We've got Reese Davis coming up next, and Greg Cody says that we should all be Husky fans, that Americans should unite together to just be against Jim Harbaugh.
Correct. Yes, I don't have to research that
Right.
opinion.
Okay.
Right. That's exactly right. Look, I love so much about sports, and one of the things I love is that when you have a clear villain to root against, okay? 95% of the country doesn't give a crap about Washington or Michigan. They don't root for either team. But in this case, you can get super excited about this game because you have Washington.
Gamble on by DraftKings.
There are, Stugotz, believe it or not, some people who do want to hear from me on a variety of hot-button topics today, whether it's Aaron Rodgers against Jimmy Kimmel or Jason Whitlock or Dave Chappelle. And if you want those things, I'm going to talk about all of them in hour 2 of today's podcast. That's where they will all be if you want to get them or if you want to avoid them at all costs.
Every single one of them?
I'm just telling you, I'm going to put them all over there.
The rare hour 2 teas.
Yeah, and if you want them, they will be there. And if you don't want them, you can avoid it very easily.
Because we have to talk about the Pinstripe Bowl in the local hour in Miami losing to the Rutgers Scarlet Knights in New York City last week.
We also have to get to your just general delight in what the Ravens did to the Dolphins, because what I have not talked to Greg Cody or his son about. We've got here an entire family that has suffered this Dolphin team and all of its incarnations. Is you go into that hopeful game and Baltimore beats you to death with one-handed catches. Like all across that league, you see people dropping the ball all over the place, and every big play in that game on offense or
sticks
defense.
to Likely's hand.
Baltimore didn't even need both hands to beat the Dolphins. They did it with one hand tied behind their back.
And suddenly the receivers are not only catching the football, but making like Odell Beckham Jr. had a huge catch in that game. It was insane. And I'll also, for the record, I hate the Ravens, but this sets up perfectly for a Smetty Bowl now, because if they rest their starters on Sunday and the Steelers win and the Dolphins win, Smetty Bowl, mark your calendars, 10 days from right now, Publix Dips, parking lot, Hard Rock Stadium. Thank you, Stephen Ross.
Tent and a folding chair.
OBJ doing that just blew my mind. Like, that even made me laugh. As a Dolphins fan, seeing OBJ make catches like that, I was like, all right, well, I guess this is what's going to happen now. That's what we do in December, sure.
Well, everybody's focused on the score, and 56-19 is outrageous at any level. But the idea that Baltimore won is zero surprise. I'm a homer, maybe. I picked Baltimore to win and cover, which is part of why I went 14-2 last week, including 12-4 against the spread. I did pick Baltimore. They're the best team. They're the best team in the NFL, and the fact that they won. Damn right I did. Damn right. I
You only started talking so you could tell us what your record was against the spread.
Correct. That's right.
It's Reese Davis, up and running. His audio is functional. He is a constant professional. He also always looks like a Disney prince.
Not a hair out of place,
no,
man.
And never.
Incredible.
Do you wake up with bedhead? How long does your hair take? What is the product sequence? Can you take us through the whole grooming kit?
Yeah, no problem. First of all, I wake up and I do have slight bedhead, but because it's so well trained and my hair is so disciplined, usually just one of those,
right.
and we're all set.
Oh, man.
And Paul Mitchell Construction Paste or Duke Cannon, neither of which paid me to say that, are the two products of choice for the not secrets. Together. That's too much. You just have to use a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
Wow. How's it feel to be a Disney prince, by the way?
He is giving, we've asked him that before, he is giving away all of the secrets. And Herb Street also wears, right? I think we've asked you about this portion of it too. You guys can have air-conditioned shirts, right? There is such a thing.
There is such a thing as the air-conditioned shirts. Now, we didn't need those, and a lot of people don't like them, but I do. What they do is it's almost like a compression shirt, and it's got little tubes in it, and they can connect it to basically a water pump that'll pump cold water through it. So in those days when it's 102, you can not sweat through your shirt or sweat through your suit. So those exist. Herb Street likes to have the air conditioning on underneath the desk, just blowing on him. Even if it's 40 degrees outside, that's just how he rolls. Desmond and I prefer to be a little warmer. And I think Pat's in the middle. He just rolls with the punches, whatever the elements are.
Well, I feel like he's not going to get too hot if he's in a tank top the whole time. But, Reese, I would love to keep talking about your grooming habits, but I have an important football question to ask you, which is, can you please tell the good people at the Rose Bowl, a 5 p.m. Eastern kickoff is just not going to cut it in the future. We need to move that up. It's okay if the sun sets after the game. Can you please tell them that?
I could tell them, but they won't listen. I mean, that is sort of a staple of the tradition that they value. You need a little bit of time after the parade concludes, which is a really important factor to the Tournament of Roses people. And I think they are so locked in on that 2:00 Pacific start that it would be difficult to get them to change. But I don't know that one would be the worst thing in the world for all of us if we kick the thing at 1 Pacific. But next year, when it's in the middle of the quarterfinals, that might be the necessity anyway to have the 5 Eastern kick. What is it? Is it encroaching on your sleep? Is that what's happening here?
It took
Having
me
to stay up for the second game.
Yes, It took me an entire day to recover. Not from New Year's Eve, from New Year's Day. I am in my jammies by 9:30 usually on weekdays, and oh my God, yesterday I took a 3-hour nap in my bed. I was so tired from staying up that late.
I took the red eye back after the games.
Ooh,
so.
Wow.
Yeah, and then no nap yesterday, but I slept pretty well last night.
Reese, since we were discussing Kirk Herbstreit, and just between us, okay, no one's listening. I won't tell him, you won't tell him, but the
Sure,
dog,
of course not.
the beautiful dog, the private jets, it's a bit much, right? I mean, come on.
Ben, that is the I've got to be careful to make sure my dog's not listening because he's developed a little bit of a jealousy toward Ben.
There's no words.
That dog has such a sweet disposition. In fact, before the show on New Year's morning, Kirk was doing something and Ben walked over to me. We're not particularly close, but he knows I'll give him a pet. And he also saw that I had a dry pancake in my hand. So he walked over and he sat down at my feet and I looked at him. I was like, all right, Ben, don't tell anybody. 1 bite for me, 1 bite for you. So we shared a pancake. He was you guys probably heard, he was the chief happiness officer of the Rose Bowl. My dog, then when I got back, said, big deal. He's only got an honorary position. I'm running for office because my dog, when we're out and about, he goes and tries to greet everybody and drum up votes.
We talked to Jay Glazer yesterday, and I wanted to talk to you about this because I don't think people understand in the on-air chemistry of what makes some things great on television. Sometimes you really have to have love around because there are a lot of vanities and ego, and a lot of shit can happen when a McAfee comes on board and shakes the ship a little bit. And Jay Glazer was talking about how much he loves as family the guys that he does the Sunday show with. And I read this nice article, I think it was in GQ, about the relationship between Corso and Herbstreit, that Herbstreit is grateful that Corso was so kind to him at the beginning and now is intent and hell-bent on delivering kindness publicly and protecting Corso at the end of his career. And I just wanted to talk to you about love, Reese, and how much of it is felt in your environment and how much easier it makes everything work.
I think people, Dan, you're really astute, and you know this because you have that on your show as well. And it's the thing that's made this show work in the 9 years that I've been on it, and in the years prior to that, is that the people care about each other and they care about the product. And when you're with someone that much, or a group of people, you get to know them. Obviously, you're closer to some than you are others. But there's also a relationship that transcends just a professional in most cases. If it doesn't, I think it can be, doesn't have to be, but it can be detrimental to the show. But in our case, I think there is a genuine friendship, respect, some depth in the relationships that really helps us. And, you're right, there are egos. I have one. We all do. And so, those sometimes have to be placated from time to time, and you have to understand where the lines are with everybody on the set. But it's, I think it really helps. It really helps the chemistry. It helps the back and forth. When something goes sideways, you protect each other. And then in the particular case of Lee and Kirk, that relationship almost transcends friendship and goes to legitimate family. I think Kirk really, and he mentioned it in the article, looks at LC as a second father, and all of us sort of look at him as our kindly uncle that we would like to protect. Because I think I've shared with you before, ever since I've been on the show, he often tells us, it's entertainment, sweetheart. College football is our vehicle, and he even pulled me aside before the start of this season and said, actually called me and he said, I just want to let you know, he said, with a lot of things going on, he said, we're counting on you to keep us steady. And he said, and I know you'll do it. And he said, okay, that's all I've got to say, sweetheart. Have a good day, and that was it. But, it meant a lot to me because I know that he counts on me and I count on him. And, I want him to be there for as long as he wants to be, which is, I hope, for the foreseeable future. And I trust that it will be.
Ernie Johnson says of Inside the NBA that he tells all those guys all the time that he loves them. Are I love yous thrown around freely among you guys?
I wouldn't say thrown around freely, but there are text chains and individual back and forth. And we kind of go more for the love ya, bro, because then it seems a little.
It's different. Yeah, it's different. It's different. Well done, Reese. Yes.
I think
totally different.
I think the sentiment. I think the sentiment is the same.
You gotta soften it up a little bit.
The YA.
Yeah, we're men and we're only so comfortable around the feelings. I love you is a little hard. Love you, bro, is a little soft.
We can't let all of our feelings out here, Dan. Just a little bit. We get to a certain level. We got to protect our vulnerabilities just a little bit with each other.
Reese, I wanted to ask you really quick about another football question. We saw a underdog just out physical a college football juggernaut in this postseason. So, what do you make of Rutgers beating Miami in the Pinstripe Bowl?
That was really, really well played. You know what? Since you like to talk serious football, I'll say this. The one thing that Greg Schiano's done at Rutgers is they're tough. Now, they might not always be skilled enough or deep enough to beat the elite teams, but they're tough. And you're not going to go in and just have them step back if you hit them in the mouth. So that was a great win. That was a great win for the Scarlet Knights. He's a terrific coach, and he's done a good job. And Mario's team, that's going to be the goal for them because that's sort of in his DNA. And they have more steps to take, and we'll see how it goes for them.
Reese, we've got 2 minutes left. I need to make this quick, so let's make your answers quick because we've got a lot of questions here. Stugotz, you go first.
Okay.
All right, Reese. If Georgia played Michigan on Monday instead of Alabama, would Georgia have won the game?
No.
Quick answer.
Mario Cristobal's had 2 top 6 recruiting classes in a row, but he's 12-13 his first 2 seasons at Miami. Is he the guy who's going to return the U to glory?
Yes, but he better get something done this year. Don't get it done in year 3. It's often hard to turn it around.
Is Michigan going to have this title vacated?
No.
What are going to be
because I don't think the types of penalties that they would get rise to that level. It's not necessarily recruiting type issue, so no.
How weak of an Alabama team was this actually for Saban? Because I thought this was a great coaching job he did this season.
Amazing coaching job. I thought all season that they were a year away, had a chance to win the game, even though Michigan was the better team, and probably should have won the game, even though Michigan was the better team. So amazing coaching job, SEC champions, and if they can clean some stuff up, they will be a handful to be dealt with next year.
Is Harbaugh leaving?
If I had to bet, I'd say yes. I have no inside intel on that, but I would suggest yes. And if he wins the national championship, then I'd probably increase the odds even more.
The College Football Playoff National Championship airs Monday, 7:30 on ESPN. I know a lot of people are saying you got to fix college football, but football always wins. You saw those games. Nothing needs fixing. Those were amazing games, and the arguments aren't bad for it either. Thank you, Reese. Always good seeing you.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. Happy New Year.
Thank you, Reese.
Love you.
Love you. Love you guys.
Love
you.
Billy, would you please help me navigate something between the Codys? Because I love their relationship. I love the tension in their relationship, the sparks in their relationship. It reminds me of what I was doing with my father on television. But my father has never been as mad at me as Greg Cody routinely gets at his son. And so
because his son's a disrespectful prick.
Well said. Yep.
The Greg Cody Show featuring Greg Cody.
Fine.
I tell Greg Cody all the time, leaving segments, when he is pissed at his prick of a son. I tell him all the time. Just got done saying it to him a break ago. Greg, when your son does that stuff, it is a winning position for you. And Greg Cody's response in the eating area was, fuck him.
Well, you're paraphrasing. I didn't exactly say that.
What'd you say?
Fuck him, prick.
No,
He's making it more entertaining, Dad.
I did. No, what I explained was that he has the same persona on my podcast, and 90% of the negative comments we get, and we don't get a lot, 90% of them are, Chris, lay off your dad, or let your dad talk, or quit interrupting your dad. That's what people don't like about my podcast. He continues to do it. I don't know whether that's smart or not. In this case, the thing that got me mad was the baseball ballot thing, okay? Purely as a courtesy, do I do that privately every year, where I give both of my sons a copy of the ballot and invite them to fill it out.
You mentioned all this. We got to cover the ground again.
Okay,
like,
and
you're stuck.
For those just joining
Well,
us.
it's technically a new hour.
No, but what a great dad. I mean, seriously.
you.
I wish I had a dad that had a Hall of Fame vote. He would ask me.
Right.
I mean,
and parenthetically, neither of my sons returned their ballot. Okay?
Wow.
So I'm never going to do that again. But, you know, it's fine. You know, Christopher.
You can't do that the way you just did it, which is never again stumble around. It's fine. Like, it's clearly
It's
not
just,
fine.
There's disappointment in his voice, Dan. Like, he clearly isn't happy with the situation that's going on here. He extends an olive branch. His son comes on the air, threatens to murder Santa Claus yesterday. Like, there's a lot going on here.
But, Greg, I will tell you this. You think the audience doesn't like it, and I'm telling you, and so is Dan, they do like it.
Okay.
They'll get mad at Christopher, but they like that
it's a
dynamic.
winning position for you.
Yeah, and what I do tell people on the air all the time, because I believe this, his lack of disrespect for me is on-air shtick.
Lack of disrespect?
Or lack of respect for me is on-air shtick. I think in real life, he does respect me. I have no doubt that in real life he loves me. So, you know, it can be frustrating at times, but I know where his heart is.
You got to feel for Greg because, I mean, these two shared in Chris's childhood baseball as a love, something that Greg, I mean, you were going out to his baseball games as an announcer when he was in high school. I mean, truly bonding over this from a young age. And now, at this point, when the two of you have been working together for so long, you know, you've obviously been in Chris's life his entire life, turned him into the man that he is, and now he's going to disrespect you on the air over something that you've bonded over since his childhood. I mean, it's disrespectful. It's
show
rude.
business, baby.
Terrible.
It's show business.
I'll take it one step further. Greg's not getting enough credit for being a great father to Christopher, because what's going on here is you guys are reassuring him, saying, Greg, this is great for you. This is great for you. And Greg, the egoless person that he is, says, I don't care about how this comes off for me. I care how this comes off for Christopher, and it is poorly. It comes off poorly for Christopher, the way that he treats me. And I don't want to see my son get dragged by the masses for the disrespect that he shows me, show business or not. I know the real boy that he is, and I want him to be that boy on air. I don't want him to come out here and take all of these criticisms on my behalf. Let them criticize me, not my son. That's what Greg's saying.
Well, listen, you have to remember when the Marlins were born, when the Marlins played their very first game, Charlie Huff on the mound, Christopher was 5 going on 6.
I was there.
I thought, what a great gift the Marlins are to my son. He's going to grow up loving baseball. And so,
And then Samson arrived.
And so an extension of that is me having the courtesy to show him my Hall of Fame ballot every year to fill out, thinking he might enjoy doing it. Apparently he doesn't because he didn't return it this year. But still,
wow.
So that's just a background.
But that's fine, as you said. It's fine. It's not something you're holding on to.
I'm pretending it's fine. Yes.
Not at all.
Put it on the poll, please, Juju, at Le Batard Show. Is Chris a good boy? The thing that I wish to discuss as it relates to them, Stugotz, because this stuff is all complicated.
Wait a second, and I'm sorry to cut you off. You send him the ballot, he doesn't send it back, and I'm yearning for a dad who has a Hall of Fame vote. Can you send them to me next year?
I will.
If you really want the nuts and bolts in this, for years we have sent it back, and like he said, he doesn't listen to us. So it's like, what are we doing this for?
Well, if I began to listen to someone else's ballot, that might be a problem with the BBWAA. I want to make it clear, I fill out my own ballot, but I don't think it's against the rules to invite my baseball-loving sons to have their opinion.
I cannot tell you that anyone on earth enjoys saying BBWAA more than this old time sports writer.
Oh yeah, that's in a big font on my gravestone.
Here's what's funny about everything that's happening here. Greg Cody takes immense pride, as far as I can tell, in only two things in the world: his BBWAA Hall of Fame vote and being a father. The fact that he turned down the opportunity to be Stugotz on this show because he didn't want to miss his son's high school baseball game and see that sharp liner to right against Matt Latos for a 7-9 Plantation team.
The Paladins have opened a 6-pack.
That's right. It wasn't a sharp liner, by the way. You know.
It was a sharp liner.
Was it?
Yeah.
I remember it as sort of a little blooper that lands right behind the first baseman.
Knuckler.
Okay.
It's offensive.
Okay.
But Greg Cody gets legitimately mad at his son because now you're doing both of the things that upset your father. You're respecting neither his Hall of Fame vote, which is a treasure, which he got when I lost mine for selling it to Deadspin.
Nothing to do with it. I got it because I had been 10 years covering the Marlins, which earned me a
immense pride.
Covering the Marlins.
He takes immense pride in
going
his
to opening day
Hall of Fame vote, and also in being your dad, and as he spent the last 5 years coughing at a microphone to remind us all in general about sickness and mortality.
Correct.
The sentiment of, hey, kids, want to share this common ground with us? Look at this place where I'm proud. Come be my son and enjoy pride in your father, who was 14-2 straight up this week, and 12-4 against the spread. Yeah. The pride that your father takes in these things, come share them with him. And then Chris Cody wanders over and, does what kids do to their dad when they become teenagers or older. Hey, these things that you want respected, I don't really respect them.
Roll their eyes.
Right. Nor will I pretend that I respect them.
I don't want to undercut him any more than I already have, so I'm just not going to say anything.
Well, that's good for content. That's an excellent decision to make in that seat.
But if you want to ask him something, ask him how many baseball games he's watched the last couple seasons.
Well, this is the thing. I happen to know this. Well, you will answer, but you will answer in a way that's favorable to the BBWAA because you're afraid of having your vote stripped because your kids know more about baseball than you do.
No, that's not true. Neither my fear nor the fact that they know more about baseball than I do.
You don't think your kids know more about baseball than you do?
Okay, I'm not going to take it.
Are you kidding me?
Let's do a Marlins quiz in the next segment.
I'm telling you right
now,
his
favorite thing to say is, that's what he says. We start asking him questions, I'm not going to take a quiz.
That's right.
You want to take the quiz, though,
I'll have you
know
guys, not a person on earth has made it to the Hall of Fame because of a Wednesday game against the Pirates.
Right.
Not a one.
Billy knows it.
How many games, Greg? Last 2 years have you watched?
Last 2 years?
Yeah.
Well, I don't watch baseball games from front to back unless I'm at them. Unless I'm at them. I can't watch a 9-inning game. I just can't.
Tim Kirkchin says the same thing.
Sitting at home.
How many have you been to the last 5 years?
To cover, I would say I've been to, I probably average about 7 to 10 a game.
Yeah.
That's enough.
7 to 10 a year?
Yeah,
Jeremy just spit out his coffee.
Find,
oh, my
find
gosh.
someone covering the
Greg,
NFL.
I was on your side.
No.
7 to 10 a year?
No, false.
How about the
Over
7
2
to 10
years.
in this state? He's been to that new
7
stadium.
to 10 innings a
10
year?
times.
No. Find someone who goes to 7 to 10 Dolphins home games a year.
Right.
A reminder that Greg Cody is very careful about getting his facts straight when he talks into a microphone.
Well, I'm guessing.
You're lying is what you're doing. That's not guessing. You're making it look. There was no chance we were going to get a real answer to that question that wasn't inflated. There was 0% chance.
Okay, I'm going to tell you the truth.
I want the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
I will tell you the truth.
This is a new and unimproved Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz. Gamble on by DraftKings.